Have you ever heard of a kingdom that just disappeared? No war, no clear invasion, no grand final battle recorded in history. One day, it was there, strong, proud, rich in gold and iron. And then, it was gone. No goodbye, no warning, just silence. That kingdom was Urartu. Most people have never heard of it. But in its time, Urartu was powerful, so powerful it rivaled ancient Assyria. Its walls stretched high, its warriors fierce, and its land full of treasure. But today, it's nothing more than broken stones buried under dust. Its name doesn't echo through history books like Rome or Egypt. In fact, most of what we know comes from the words of its enemies. And that's where the mystery begins. How does a kingdom that powerful vanish without leaving behind a clear story? Stay with me till the end of this video. Because the deeper we go, the stranger it gets. There's a twist in this tale that may change how you see ancient history forever. So what do we actually know about this forgotten kingdom? Urartu first shows up in history around the 9th century BCE. It was hidden high in the mountains, where modern-day eastern Turkey, Armenia, and parts of Iran meet. The land was rough, rocky hills, deep valleys, cold winters. It wasn't the kind of place where great empires were expected to rise. But somehow, Urartu did. And it rose fast. Its kings ruled from strong stone cities, often built on steep cliffs. The most famous of these cities was called Tushpa, which sat beside Lake Van. Even today, its ruins look over the water like a ghost from the past. Walls of stone still stand, weathered by time but proud. Imagine what those walls once saw: markets full of traders, soldiers in iron armor, scribes carving messages into stone. But here's the strange thing. Most of what we know about Urartu doesn't come from the people who live there. It comes from their enemies, especially the Assyrians. The Assyrians were the superpower of the time. Think of them as the bullies of the ancient Middle East, mighty, brutal, and always at war. They wrote everything down. And they feared Urartu. Their records tell us Urartu wasn't just some mountain tribe. It was a real threat, a kingdom that could fight toe-to-toe with the strongest empire around. That's no small thing. The kings of Urartu had strange names, like Saduri, Menua, Agishti, names that now feel like echoes from another world. They built canals that still exist today. They carved their laws and victories into cliffs. They worshipped gods with names like Haldi, Tesheba, and Shavini. And they were masters of iron, maybe even better than the Assyrians themselves. Their writing looked similar to cuneiform, the wedge-shaped script used by Mesopotamians. But the language? Totally different. To this day, we can read only parts of it, and no one truly understands the full grammar. It's like trying to solve a puzzle with most of the pieces missing. And yet, they thrived. For over 2 centuries, Urartu held its ground. It grew, spread, traded, and built. Their engineers shaped the land with dams and water systems far ahead of their time. Their art shows winged gods, lions, warriors, and symbols that make historians scratch their heads. But here's what really makes it eerie. Despite all their stone carvings, all their cities, all their temples, they left behind almost no stories. No long texts. No myths. No records that explain who they were, what they feared, or why they disappeared. It's like someone pressed delete on an entire culture. So far, all we have are names, battle reports from enemies, and broken ruins. And that's where the story starts to shift from history into mystery. Why would a kingdom with so much power and skill leave behind so little of its own voice? Why are there no great epic tales from Urartu, like the Iliad or the Epic of Gilgamesh? Did they simply never write them down? Or did someone, or something, erase them? Was it a natural disaster that ended them? A war too big to survive? A sickness that spread faster than they could run? Or was it something even stranger? In the next part of this story, we'll look at how Urartu's final days played out, and why the clues we do have only raised more questions than answers. Because when a kingdom vanishes without a trace, the silence can be louder than any scream. But where did this mysterious kingdom come from? And how did it rise to power in such a hostile and unpredictable landscape? To understand Urartu's strange fall, we must first understand its sudden rise. Around the 9th century BCE, while the world was watching the rise of Assyria, something unexpected was happening in the highlands near Lake Van. Small tribal communities that once fought each other began to unite. They built fortresses on rocky cliffs. They carved tunnels through mountains. And they raised strong walls of stone to guard their people. These weren't just farmers or hunters. These were builders, fighters, survivors. Their leader was a man named King Arain, the first ruler of Urartu mentioned in history. He's a bit of a ghost. We don't know much about him. But what we do know is that he stood up to the mighty Assyrian Empire. That's like a startup company going head-to-head with a global giant. And believe it or not, he held his ground. After Arain, other kings followed, like Ishpuwini, who expanded Urartu's borders, and Menua, who built canals that are still visible today. Yes, you heard that right. Canals dug by hand, over 2,800 years ago, still flowing in modern Turkey and Armenia. That's not just history, that's engineering genius. Urartu's cities were impressive. Built high in the mountains, they looked down on the valleys like watchful eyes. Their walls were made of stone and bronze. Inside, they had temples, warehouses, and palaces. Archaeologists have found huge storage jars, some as tall as a grown man, buried deep underground. These weren't just homes, they were power centers. But here's something even more fascinating. The people of Urartu created their own script, a system of writing carved into rocks and bronze plates. But unlike Egyptian hieroglyphs or Sumerian cuneiform, the Urartian script hasn't given up all its secrets. We can read some of it, but not all. Imagine having a diary from the past, but only being able to read every third sentence. That's what Urartu left behind. And while we know they worshipped gods like Haldi, the war god, we still don't fully understand their religion. Their rituals were private. Their beliefs, deeply hidden. And that makes the mystery even thicker. Some say they were obsessed with protection. That's why they built their fortresses so high and their temples so deep. Some believe they saw the mountains as sacred, full of spirits and secrets. Every stone they carved, every weapon they forged, seems to whisper something we can't quite hear. What's even stranger is how fast they expanded. In less than a century, Urartu went from scattered tribes to a powerful kingdom, stretching across what is now eastern Turkey, Armenia, and parts of Iran. Their army rivaled the Assyrians. Their cities glowed with wealth. And their kings believed they ruled by divine right. So what went wrong? How could a kingdom that rose so fast, that built so strong, simply vanish? That's what makes Urartu different from other lost civilizations. We don't see a slow decline. There's no record of civil war, no long famine, no obvious warning signs. It's like watching someone climb to the top of a mountain, only to disappear into thin air. And that's where the mystery deepens. Because just as Urartu reached its golden age, something dark began to move on the horizon. Keep listening. The next chapter in this story will take you even deeper into the puzzle. Shadows were gathering. Enemies were watching. And what came next would change everything. At their peak, the kings of Urartu ruled over a vast and rugged land. Towering mountains guarded their cities. Rivers carved deep valleys. And within these natural walls, they built a kingdom of stone and fire. Their capital, Tushpa, now modern-day Van in Turkey, stood like a fortress on a steep hill beside a great lake. From there, they looked over their lands with pride. The Urartians were builders, skilled ones. Their cities had tall stone walls, great temples, and hidden underground canals that brought water through rock. That's right, centuries before the Romans, they carved aqueducts and irrigation systems that still baffle modern engineers. In fact, some of those channels still work today. But they weren't just building cities, they were building power. The kings claimed they were chosen by Haldi, their main god. Every victory in battle, every new wall, every successful harvest, they credited it to him. And to honor him, they filled the land with temples and carved his image into cliffs. Haldi stood tall in their stories, with a helmet and sword, a god of strength. Their army, fierce and feared, dressed in metal armor, riding strong horses, and trained in mountain warfare. They didn't just defend their land, they expanded it. They fought with the Assyrians to the south, clashed with tribes to the north, and built an empire on force and fear. But something strange happened. As Urartu grew stronger, it also grew quieter in the records. Compared to Assyria, they didn't leave behind much writing. No grand histories. No detailed scrolls. Just stone carvings, broken tablets, and temple walls. Almost like they didn't want their secrets known. Or maybe Someone made sure we'd never know. That silence is more than just missing stories. It's a shadow, and it grows darker the closer we get to the end of Urartu. Let's go there next. What happens when a strong kingdom suddenly goes quiet? No final battle. No clear defeat. No grand farewell. That's exactly what happened to Urartu. One day they were powerful, and then they were gone. Historians search for answers, but the truth is, no one really knows. Around the 6th century BCE, something happened. Their cities were attacked. Their temples burned. Their writing stopped. The land fell silent. Some say it was the Medes, an ancient group from what is now Iran, who wiped them out. Others believe it was many enemies at once. Or maybe it wasn't even war at all. Maybe something else caused their fall. Disease? Earthquakes? Betrayal from within? There's no single answer. Just ruins. Scorched stone. Broken statues. A mystery buried in the dirt. The people vanished, but their walls remained. Their gods stayed carved into cliffs. Their canals still carried water. And their story? It faded like smoke in the wind. But even after their fall, the name Urartu lived on, just in a new form. The people didn't all die. Some became part of later groups, like the Armenians. Their bloodline flowed on. Their ideas, too. Hidden, but alive. The question is, why did history forget them? Why do we remember so many ancient powers, Egypt, Rome, Babylon, but not Urartu? Let's dig even deeper. Even though Urartu disappeared, they didn't vanish without a trace. Across the mountains of eastern Turkey and Armenia, they left behind something powerful: stone. Massive walls, fortress ruins, and carvings still whisper their story. Archaeologists have found city remains on mountain tops, high and hard to reach. These weren't small places. They were strongholds, huge forts made with blocks of stone, some weighing more than a car. It makes you wonder, how did they build so high, so strong, so long ago? And then there are the carvings. On cliffs and rocks, you can still see strange writing. It's not in any language we speak today. Their script is called Urartian, and only parts of it have been decoded. Imagine writing a diary and no one on Earth can fully read it thousands of years later. That's what Urartu left us, unfinished sentences in stone. They also had bronze armor, weapons, tools, and even beautiful jewelry. Their art was detailed and proud. They painted, sculpted, and built things meant to last. And many of them did. But here's what makes it even stranger. They left no stories. No myths passed down. No famous kings told in bedtime tales. Nothing to explain what truly happened. It's like their memory was wiped on purpose, or simply buried too deep in time. Still, these broken pieces tell us something important. This kingdom mattered. It had ideas. It had strength. And even in silence, it left behind a voice, if we are willing to listen closely enough. But there's one last thing about Urartu that will really leave you thinking. So how does a whole kingdom disappear? That's the biggest mystery of all. There are many theories, but none of them give a clear answer. It's like trying to finish a puzzle with half the pieces missing. Still, the ideas we do have are both fascinating and chilling. One theory is war. The Assyrians were strong enemies, and later came the Medes, another powerful group. Maybe Urartu was attacked so many times, it just couldn't survive. Cities were burned. People fled or were taken. The walls that once protected them couldn't hold back everything. But war isn't the only guess. Some experts think natural disasters played a role. Massive earthquakes, harsh winters, or even droughts that made it hard to grow food. If your land stops feeding you, you don't stay. You run. There's also the idea of slow fading. Maybe Urartu didn't fall in a single day or year. Maybe people just started leaving. Maybe they stopped believing in the kings. Over time, cities entered. Stories were forgotten. And a kingdom turned to ruins. And then there's the strangest theory of all. What if they were absorbed into another culture? Like a glass of water poured into the ocean. Their language, their beliefs, even their names, washed away until nothing was left. That might explain why so few written records remain. It wasn't destruction. It was erasure. No matter what truly happened, one thing is clear. The kingdom of Urartu didn't just vanish. It slipped into silence. A silence so deep that even today, with satellites and science and tools that can scan the Earth, we still don't fully understand how it ended. And maybe that's what makes it so haunting. Because when a kingdom dies and no one remembers, it reminds us how easy it is for time to erase even the strongest empires. If this story made you pause, if it left you wondering how something so powerful could vanish so completely, then you're not alone. History hides so many secrets, some waiting to be uncovered, others buried forever. But here's the thing, the more we ask questions, the closer we get to the truth. So if you love diving into these hidden chapters of our past, don't forget to like the video, subscribe for more forgotten stories, and share your thoughts in the comments.